Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the Walking Dead video. So I want to talk about Rick's return to The Walking Dead and why I do believe it could actually really happen in Dead City. The other day I did a video about Dead City and it potentially getting 2 more seasons and that they could be filming that back-to-back this summer and that might actually be the end of the show. And we've heard a lot of rumors, Gimple has talked about a few things lately in terms of Rick's return, maybe not happening in the Once You Live season 2, but maybe like in a new series or just like in a different way. And so obviously Rick showing up on Dead City makes a lot of sense, right? And if they are filming the very last season this summer, right after they film season 3, then, Andrew Lincoln could be filming this summer. So I want to get into some more specifics with this for Rick. And then I do want to talk about, I'll eventually do a video on Dwight's return as well, because I think his return, if anything, would happen probably sooner than Rick and could actually happen in season 3. So yeah, I'll wait a little bit for that though. I do want to see a lot more from the season and just see a little bit more of what the story is to see how Dwight's return could actually fit into this, because for Rick, it makes a lot of sense and we'll get into that here. So before going further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all of my Walking Dead content like this. Now, is Rick's return in Dead City now possible? The big news last week, well, it wasn't officially confirmed, but at TWU Filming on Twitter, or X, I guess, said that Dead City is likely going to be filming in the summer of 2025, and that it could actually be a back-to-back season type of thing where we get season 3 and 4, and that might actually be the end. And so obviously, we will get confirmation of that probably on April 30th, and so yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. But when you look at what Gimple said a couple of months ago about Rick returning and how it would be possible sort of thing, it really makes me wonder if this is the way to do it here, right? I do think Rick reuniting with Maggie and Negan is for sure going to happen. I think the question is it going to happen in the very last season of Dead City? Or is it going to happen in a new series, right? And I think that's always been the question for a while now. But now that we know that we're most likely going to be getting 2 more seasons of Dead City and that will be the end and that they are filming all of that this year, then later this year, if Rick is going to be a part of that last season, even if it's for a few episodes, Andrew Lincoln will be on set, right? Filming that. So that will happen later on this year. And how do you keep that a secret, right? That's the thing about that. If they're trying to keep it a secret, it's going to be impossible because Andrew Lincoln will be there. People will find out that Andrew Lincoln is filming something Walking Dead related. There's just no way to keep that a secret, really, unless, again, I don't really know. If he's a part of the story and it's a really big story with something happening in New York City and the CRM, someone has to get involved, that's what I mean. I just feel like it makes sense that everyone will find out that Andrew Lincoln is there filming. So there's going to be confirmation of that if it does happen. And if it does happen, it'll be later this year. So it's not like we have to wait another year or 2 for this to happen, right? It's going to happen later this year if they are filming the final season later this year. But we'll get confirmation about that obviously towards the end of this month here. And so I do think because this could actually be the end of Dead City, that we could see Rick's return here. I think that it is very, very possible. These are the moments that it could actually happen in, right? If Rick's going to return to reunite with any of the characters, it's going to be in the final seasons of Dead City or The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, or in a new series or something like that. That's the thing about it though, is I don't know what's going to happen with Maggie and with Negan after this series. I do think that we are going to see them again. There's no way that after this year that we're just completely done with those characters. I think that we are going to see them again, for sure, because I think that they do want to reunite with everybody and tell one last final story, right? And if they were filming back-to-back seasons here for season 3 and 4, that is over the next 2 years. And so next year from now, that'll be season 3. The year after in 2027 would be a season 4. And I just don't see that being the end for these characters here. I can definitely see them reuniting all the characters. And if they filmed in 2027 to do all of that, to have the show out in 2028, then that would be 4 years apart from the Ones Who Live, right? For Rick to return and have all of them reuniting, right? But it really all just depends, because I think if they really go another route and have other spinoffs, which I think they will, how does all of that connect, right? But this is a good sign, I think, overall, that we are headed in the direction of reuniting, Maggie and Negan with Rick and Michonne. I think for sure that will happen in the next couple of years here. I do think it really could happen, in the very last season. If it doesn't happen in the last season and he's not a big part of the story, I could totally see it happening in the very last episode of Dead City, where I don't know what the story would even be like. Like, we'll get into that right away, but if it's something with New York and it's built to like this big moment here and the CRM help rescue them and Rick is there with Michonne and literally like Rick is there in like the last couple of scenes or whatever, it definitely wouldn't be much of a reunion. I would want to see a lot more there, but it's very similar to the Ones Who Lives ending as well, right? Like, I wanted to see Rick with his family a lot more than just like, a couple of minutes. And so they could always just do something like that where Rick and Michonne show up there to help them out and save them. And then, I don't know where the story is going to get to for Dead City, but it could absolutely get so insane because of what's happening in season 2. And so, a very last episode, like finale, appearance, I think could make a lot of sense for Rick, because I know the one thing with Andrew Lincoln and wanting to show up on The Walking Dead, he didn't want to show up and be a part of the story and take away from that story that they worked on, for like the last couple of seasons or whatever. Like, he wanted to return, but he wanted it to be in a way where he was still giving everyone else, their time to shine, because they worked so hard on this story. He didn't want Rick to just show up that everyone's talking about Rick, right? So I think at the end of The Walking Dead, they did a really good job with that, where it was the ending of the story, it was a really cool ending and everything was very peaceful. And they talked about like they were the ones who lived, like they survived kind of thing. And it was an ending to that show, and then a transition to Rick and Michonne and the future of The Walking Dead and the fact that they are still out there surviving, right? So it was a tease for the future and like everything happening with The Walking Dead, but it also, I think, wrapped up the story very well and really focused on what they all tried to do, which was, survive the zombie apocalypse. And so I think that Andrew Lincoln wouldn't want to be a part of the story if it meant that he completely took over the story and literally like took the show away from Maggie and Negan, right? So I think he could show up in the very last episode. Maybe he's there throughout season 4 and there's something that actually makes sense there, but in that very last episode, I could totally see it happening now. And I think that if this is the very final season here, like, people want to see those characters reunite. So it's going to happen, right? And I think the one thing about reuniting these characters here in Dead City over doing a reunion show is I think that Rick and Daryl are going to reunite like in a different show. There's going to be a totally different story. I think they will do that at some point. Andrew Lincoln seems very interested. Denai Guerrera also seems interested. So I think they will do that no matter what. But I also think reuniting, some of the characters before in a different show could also work as well. And like not have all of the reunions for that last show, right? Because I think that is something that would hurt that show, I think, because you would have like every episode, oh, Rick is reuniting with this character now, or this character, or this character. Like, it would just be all about that every single episode, right? So I think that you want to do it where it's just sort of like on different shows, and then maybe in the final like Endgame series sort of thing, and just have all of it happening like that. Like, honestly, I feel like Rick should have reunited with most of the characters before the Endgame series or whenever they do that or decide to do that, because I think that's where Rick and Daryl should reunite, is that series specifically. So I do think that Rick could actually show up here. I do think that for the story, it would make a lot of sense because of how much power that New York City is getting right now. I think that it could be New Babylon, right? Like, the New Babylon Federation is becoming very, very powerful. If they win in some way here in season 2 and they get all the resources from the Dama and the Croat, like, they could be very, very powerful. And like, if Herschel joins them, or, if Bruegel is maybe more on their side, like, we don't know where this is going to go by the end, right? Like, they're building up something here pretty big. And so if they're doing 2 more seasons, that they're building up the villains right now for this season, right? Season 1 really just introduced us to Maggie and Negan in this different world. Season 2, they're building up the world a lot more, introducing all these groups. We're seeing the villains. I think season 3, it's going to be absolutely insane. A bunch of stuff happening, a lot of drama, a lot of big deaths. I think big deaths actually will happen as well in season 2. And then there's the final season and what happens there, right? So I think that it makes a lot of sense that if New York is becoming very, very powerful and just taking over everywhere, and they are more like the villains because of New Babylon, then I could totally see the CRM getting involved, because they could be causing a lot of issues. And the CRM, they're good now, right? Like, they're not villains anymore. So I could totally see that being a part of the story in that very last season. And they'll somehow transition this story here to, the Endgame series, I feel like. Like, no matter what, whatever that Endgame series is like whenever they decide to do that, it's going to be a new story. It's going to be something that they're teasing throughout these spinoffs, right? Like, season 2 of Dead City probably has another hint to that, right? Because Daryl Dixon season 2, teased a lot of the future stuff with Laurent going back to the Commonwealth and etc. So Gimple is going to be setting up some more stuff here, and I'm just curious as to where they're going to go with that overall, where this is all building to right now. But yeah, I do think that Rick's return in Dead City is very, very likely, especially if they're ending this show here after season 4. And this is what everyone has been saying for a while. Like, everyone kept saying, well, I think that Rick will probably show up maybe in like the final seasons of these shows. Well, here we are now, right? Like, we're here with Dead City. If they're filming this back to back this summer, then that would mean that if Rick is going to be in that very last season, he's going to be there filming, probably not this summer because they'll start season 3 then. They'll probably go into like the fall or whatever, but he would be a part of that at the very end of the year going into like early next year, right? So yeah, I think that it is very possible. Yeah, I just wanted to do a video on this and talk about this just more specifically because I know I've talked about it in the last like couple videos where I would mention like, well, Rick could return or like Dwight or like other characters, but I just wanted to focus on Rick and talk about why, you know, with Dead City ending here, why it's very likely now. Like, it does seem like the possibility is very high. And maybe that's why Gimple has been talking a little bit differently about Rick's return, right? Is because he knows something now. Because before it was a lot of like, well, I would hope so, you know, like that would be my dream, this and that. But now lately, it's changed to more of what he said, I think, at the end of February, right? Early March or whatever, which was, we'll see different iterations of this and that. I can't remember exactly what he said. I'm paraphrasing. But basically, he said that it was entirely possible or something like that. And he seemed to hint that it's likely not going to be in The Ones Who Live season 2, but maybe like in another spin-off, or maybe it's a new series, or again, maybe it could be on Dead City, right? So I think that, yeah, it definitely could happen. And honestly, I wouldn't be that surprised if it did happen. So anyways, I'm going to leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. I do have a few things that I do want to talk about, but I guess I'll save it for another video because Greg Nicotero is going to be a part of another show with AMC. That sounds very exciting, so I want to talk about that. And also, Jeffrey Dean Morgan talked about his version of the character of Negan not being in Fortnite, and yeah, just said something about it that sounded kind of interesting, but I'll talk about that in a different video because this one's getting pretty long at this point here. So yeah, make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.